Hi everybody, it's Aubrey here with Empath Alchemy Toolkit, and I support empathic leaders in grounding into their authenticity so they can continue doing their work and helping humanity advance. So I believe that empaths have a very specific medicine for the world, and I understand how sometimes we struggle with being in the world, with being multi-sensory beings, and how concepts of energy and really grounding energy tools into our life can really benefit us and give us tools for navigating difficult situations and supporting ourselves with our own personal growth and healing. So I want to talk to you about one of my favorite tools is archetypes. So really recognizing the archetypes of my internal dialogue with my personal self-talk, and also understanding what archetypes I'm interacting with when I'm listening to somebody, or especially in a difficult situation or like a power struggle with someone else. This has been a very effective and useful tool in my life, and I want to explain how to use this in your life, how to really recognize them with yourself. That's what this is going to be about. I'm going to share my screen. I have a like a slideshow presentation to do with you. So share screen, here we go. Okay. Okay, so we're going to be talking about your authentic archetypes and how to really pinpoint a few archetypes within yourself that are unique to you, that are just in your soul contract. And some of these you're going to know that you interact with them all the time, and then hopefully you can kind of understand there's what archetypes want to be more present in your life, and you can start working with that to bring in these archetypes. We might sometimes, life moves on and we ignore aspects of ourselves, but how bringing those back into your life is going to be really useful medicine for you in your authentic leadership journey. Okay, let me just go to the next slide. So I'll start to explain by an archetype is really something that Carl Jung coined. He was a 19th century Swiss psychologist, and he recognized that there was certain characteristics, certain patterns that would constantly show up in his patients, and then he would recognize other, more specific to their personality, to their unique personality. So we all have survival patterns and patterns that every human being has. And then we're going to have our authentic archetypes that are unique to each person. So I like to understand archetypes as imagining them energetically, just like you would in a chakra system in the body. You can kind of imagine them as these wheels of light, or it's the energy we're channeling with our thoughts and our emotions, with our speech, with our actions. So you can think of them as like channeled energy balls that are in the air, that are also the ones that we're interacting with other people. So all these archetypes, just like energy in our chakra system, they're going to have a functional use, the dysfunction, they're going to show signs of what they look like in their most functional use and their most dysfunctional use. But they're going to have like a common neutral aspects as well. So we can, in archetypes, I talked about this by saying potential, shadow, and that the ultimate desire. So like if I were to recognize that I jump into a victim mindset easily, I might recognize that because I'm feeling sorry for myself for really no reason. Life's happening, a situation happened, and I jump right into poor me kind of thing. So I can identify that I'm in a victim mindset. But what do I really want in this moment? I really want and maybe I just feel like there's stuff happening to me. I don't have a lot of autonomy in the moment. I'm constantly trying to jump into situations or fix something, or other people are coming at me or something like that, or just life is happening. I have to get to I have to do something that I really don't want to do. But ultimately, the desire is that I want to have a say. I want to be respected. I want to feel safe and okay being me, right? That's really what is happening here. So, and in the potential of it is really feeling capable, feeling okay, feeling like I can set the appropriate boundaries. I can still be expressive. I can get these things done and not feel too compromised by it. So that's just an example of like recognizing a victim mindset. You know, going through something and catching myself feeling sorry for myself and saying, poor me, I can't believe I have to do this. No one cares, or something, you know, whatever. And how it really does hold me back in the moment. I'm really like, the energy that I'm channeling isn't supporting me. Or is it? I mean, I'm feeling this way because there's some fundamental desire that really wants me to look at it and really wants me to set time aside so I can feel autonomous and in my own space, or just have these needs met in some way. So Carolyn Mays is one of my favorite authors on the subject of archetypes. She's got a lot of books. She talks about them being a stencil, so we can kind of think about an obvious shape, a certain pattern, like a generalized characteristic, and how each individual is they're going to show up in lots of different variations, but there's going to be some very key core factors involved there. So they're going to take on lots of different variations. We're going to see them in their potential. We'll see them in their shadow, but when we recognize the desire, and often that's how we identify them. It's like, what's desired here? And what archetype has this desire? So we can kind of listen to that in ourselves and see that in others. So when you start to, if you want to do this exercise, you can do this journaling practice and start answering some questions about yourself to see what kind of authentic archetypes are you. You can ask yourself about what really motivates you. What do you know gets you going and gets you through hard times, or gets you through where do you create, and what excites you about these things that you create? What kind of people and events happen or come into your life that gets you very excited and really happy? You feel when you're with them, you feel like you're in your element when you're at these events or you're in these certain places. You're like, yes, this is so me right now. So what does that look like for you? So there might be certain people that when you do spend time with them, you might not see them very often. So when you do spend time with them, your soul can just kind of rest, or you get this, there's something about this person that brings out an element of you that doesn't get to be expressed very much. So what is it about this archetypal coordinate? What is it speaking to? And then sometimes if you see like there's this kind of event happening and it's far away, and then you have a story about, I don't care what's going on, I'm going to be there. Like I'm going to take off work, I'm going to spend the money, I'm going to take the time, I'm going to drive. So what kind of people and situations can you say that this is just like, this is you, this is your element? And that's going to point you to some archetypes that are authentic to who you are. So what characteristics that you see in other people just really turn you off? You see this characteristic and you're like, you might feel judgmental about it. Like this is just a big red flag for you, and it's something that makes you kind of just write the person off. And also in situations too, we can look at that in both ways, in individuals and in certain social situations. So what are your favorite characteristics in people when you're first getting to know someone and you see something in them and makes you just love them automatically? What are those characteristics? And where do you feel connected to something bigger outside of you? Where do you feel spiritual? What kind of acts, what kind of intentional moments, what kind of ceremonies or rituals, what kind of things really make you feel connected and in this spiritual zone? And that a lot of times these things can be connected to the spiritual archetypes that we love about ourselves and other people. We can also, like, if there will, a religion can be an archetype, or certain practices are going to point to certain archetypes that we can probably identify within ourselves here. And then your creative outlets, your favorite ways to express yourself artistically. And then this question about spoken and unspoken rules, and this is kind of something that usually when you start doing this work, you're going to start seeing this more. So if you can't answer this question right away, no, it's fine. Sometimes we have ethics, expectations. This is going to point to the rules of our household, of how we were raised. Sometimes we are in alignment with this. Sometimes we're in direct opposition of this. So maybe you grew up in a home where everyone, like all the children, were expected to eat everything on their plate, no matter what. And that was something that you didn't like as a child. So now in your home, you have a different rule. It might be more of an unspoken rule. You might have, I'm trying to think of examples, but we can talk more about this. Is just to kind of get your brain start to open up to these ideas as you go forward with this archetype work. Let's see. So when you start to reassess and consider what's working and what could use support, you can ask yourself about patterns that you want to shift. What emotions do you want to have more of? And how would you like your introspection to shift? So if you know you have habits, like I use the example of just like jumping into a poor me mindset, like operating from a victim archetype within ourselves, how would you like that introspection to shift? And then, from a victim mindset to a more capable, to a more confident, to more like victorious mindset. What characteristics about yourself are you grateful for that you can really appreciate about yourself? And so what gives you a sense of spiritual connection? And then you can start creating affirmations to alchemize these thoughts. Like if I'll just stick with the poor me. Like if poor me is going to be, I can do this. I can handle this moment. What is this moment calling for right now? So if you catch yourself in these sentences we say to ourselves, like the one that I've had that I still battle with, but that was louder, longer, years ago, was "you suck." God, you suck. Like, so when we start catching ourselves in this like this just really verbally toxic internal dialogue, what can we say to ourselves in that moment and catch ourselves? Like from I suck, it's to I have so much to offer. I have so much to offer. And so this is like using archetypes as mindset tools right now. So when you catch yourself, like you can probably think of a few sentences that you say to yourself in the moments where you really want to follow through with something, but this voice is so loud so you don't do it. That you could probably think of at least one sentence right now. Can you create some kind of affirmation to alchemize it and start practicing with that? So alchemy is referring to taking one thing and transmuting it into a more polished, refined version of it. So when we get clear with our authentic selves and we can really visualize ourselves in like this higher frequency, this is going to be our first step. So to just visualize it and to also pull that visual sense into our emotional sense. Like, what do we want to see more of in ourselves for our leadership as we step into this higher frequency version of ourselves? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And when we start anchoring and when we can imagine the emotions that we want to feel, we can actually practice that in the moment, is to continue bringing in the felt sense and just living that. And that is going to change the magnetism of our body. So the things that we want become a reality fast, because we are creating the emotional experience of it. The reality falls into place. So we can start looking at these shadow aspects that we are moving through. Also, when we start doing shadow work with the archetypes, we're going to be more open to the blind spots that we've had. And this is where we're going to just practice alchemy. We're going to focus on this visual and this felt sense of what we want and work with the patterns that are not supporting this vision of ourselves. So this real medicine is about radical self-love, this like complete soul esteem. So soul esteem is self-esteem, but we really, like, as we work with our authentic archetypes that we came into the world with as souls, we can remind ourselves that we're worthy and that the patterns that we have as humans are okay. We don't have to have any shame around them, and we're working with them. We are healing. We are moving through them. They don't even have to change. We accept these patterns about ourselves. We're in full acceptance, and we're just shifting. We're alchemizing into the bigger version into the authentic version of ourselves. We're just shifting from, feeling the weight of the world on ourselves and survival patterns into our authentic self. So this is really cultivating the ability to ground into our healthy ego as we merge our daily life, operating from a place of self-mastery, operating from a place of authenticity. So when you can observe yourself in an unhealthy survival pattern while it's actually happening, you gain this traction to create alchemy and to shift within yourself. So this is where we gain this perspective through the lens of energetics. We can see it in its elements and its archetypes. We can understand our thought patterns, our emotional reactions that aren't serving us. First is like we begin to observe them, and then we start working with it and we shift it. We create something new. We practice healing, and then we ground that into a really sustainable and just a grounded, sustainable way. So this process is really the process of operating from our primal amygdala part of our brain, from our survival animal reptilian part of our brain, into the frontal lobe, into where we use more awareness and logic. So this is literally like a mindset or brain set shift. We're practicing moving from this part of our mind into our frontal lobe. So looking forward and being more of what we our potential. Okay, so remember, this is a practice. This is the alchemical process between our vision and our shadow. This is something like compassion and neutrality is going to be, is just really like the mantra we need to have with this practice. Like some days are better than others. Sometimes we think, you know, I worked on this a long time ago. Why is it coming up again? Things need to be reassessed regularly. So there's this practice of soul esteem, being gentle with ourselves, constantly giving ourselves love. And remember that work is not linear. This is, we're going to be going through layers and patterns. It's so cyclical. It's always going to be there. When we know, when I accept that, I shared that, like when I accept that I have an addict archetype in my family and in myself, then I can really watch it. I can operate from that potential and own that and be compassionate for other people who are dealing with these things. And I can also watch myself and make sure that I don't put myself in situations that bring this archetype back into my life. So I have this way of owning it. I can call it out easy. And I see it, you know, still like, I don't eat sugar or anything. And I can see myself like, sometimes I do eat fruit. So I'm like eating fruit in the kitchen over the sink like an addict. Like I can call myself out on it in the moment and still be compassionate with myself about it. So yes, there's always layers and patterns that we're going to be going through. Things are going to come up. They're going to teach us similar lessons in new ways. So we're going to have different wisdoms and different ways of going through these things again and doing deeper healing and supporting other people in different ways too. So, okay, so that's all I have. My next video is going to be the archetypes. I'm going to get very specific about each archetype that empathic souls generally have. Join me for that video. Thanks.